Right, well, welcome back to me weekly yarns. Had quite a busy week this week, buggering about with bloody clutches and bits and pieces, and we did get our oil pressure ran up on this. We've got the clutch cover put on, got a starter motor put in, ordered 170 amp hour cable for the live side. I had 600 mil of cable. I don't know what the ampage was for the earth side, and I went directly from the back of the starter motor and the solenoid down to the battery. As you'll see, I've got a clip of it. Obviously the earth cable wasn't or isn't substantial enough, because it does heat up quite a bit. So but we've got that done, and we've got our oil pressure checked, and we're getting about 50-ish psi on turnover, which isn't bad. When you see the gauge though, this gauge goes up to 35 bar. The red writings of the bar, the black writings PSIs. So it only, the needle moved and it came to about here, about 3.5, 4 bar, but that was just on turnover. So I was pleased with that. I'm quite chuffed with that. What we'll do is we'll take this off, put it away. I will put it back in the hole here. We will put in the oil pressure sender switch, just to keep any dirt or whatever out of there. We'll keep an eye on this for leaks, because this obviously, it's all full now. As I say, I was pleased with that, and that was the first time that this engine has turned under its own ability. Up until yesterday, this engine had never turned over like that since the 11th of January 2021. So as I say, chuffed to bits about that. Well, tidy everything up, as I say, seal it up again. I've left the cables on. Periodically we can give it a bump, but just put a battery on the floor, give it a bump, keep the oil pushing up around the engine, keep everything mobile. So what else are we getting done this week? Well, as you see, we'll get my clutches done. Well, I'm getting them done, we're getting them stripped. We're getting them tucked to bits, we're getting 99% clean. We need to get at it with a little wire brush into the delicate bits. This next week it will get a coat of paint, but only after I have measured the holes in the pressure plate. 2 ticks. I want to measure the holes in here, and I want to have a conversation with someone. If they are too far out of round, can they be bushed, or is it scrap? If you drill them and bush them, I think you're going to start wicking the casting, and the last thing we need is those coming to bits under load inside here. The damage would be quite immense. And I could imagine if you're in a confined space, you're not going to be, obviously you're going to have to be pretty quick to get that pulled out of gear, and you're not going to have a clutch to pull it out of gear with, so it'll be a brute force job to pull it out of gear. As I say, we'll have a conversation with someone who knows an awful lot more about Davy Brown tractors and clutches than I do, and we'll let you know next week as to what we're going to do about that. Well, we're still waiting for injector tips to arrive. They haven't come yet, even though they've been ordered, and the post office has now gone on strike. So I don't know the company that I bought them off. I don't know who they use, whether they're using couriers or whether they're using Royal Mail, but looks like things are going to get a little bit slow in the next few weeks for getting parts delivered. We'll just have to wait and see, won't we? I'm going to take you through my injectors later on, because there's the locking nut. I'm going to point something out on the locking nut, and again I'll be asking some advice about that locking nut. It would appear that they are single use lock nuts, in my opinion, at the minute. It might be that when I ask the questions, the answers that I get back, it might be just no, that's the way they are. Do X, Y and Z with them and they'll be fixed. I just had to put a tap through them, clean them out with a tap. But I'll show you, I'll give you a quick look at them later, and I'll show you what's what with them. I've been up to the farm this morning and I've moved the final drives that were sitting in a crate outside, and I've put them in my shed out the weather, because it's obviously the nights are getting shorter, the weather's getting colder and wetter, even though you wouldn't think it from today. But what we're going to do, get them in the shed out the way so we can start and get a look at them. I'm going back up this week with an oily rag, give it the shafts a wipe down with an oily rag. There appears to be quite a bit of wear where the seals sat on both of the shafts. I'll know better once I get them cleaned up. They might not be able to be saved, or I might, depending upon how bad the damage is when I get it cleaned and get it measured, we might be able to get them skimmed. It just depends on how deep the damage is. There's 2 rings on each shaft, and I don't know whether it's just black rubber rings off the seals where the seals have lived, or whether it's wear. Because if you remember, when we took the carriers out of that axle, the carriers in the old axle were actually ovalled, weren't they? Because whoever put the final drives back on hadn't bolted them up tight. Both final drives had tipped and come up, hence the nasty wear on the dowels and everything that was seen when we were dismantling the final drives. But also the shafts had been rubbing against the metal of the carriers and had ovalled the holes. So we need to have a good look at that. I might be talking to Colin in a couple of weeks' time about some replacement shafts. We'll just have to wait and see what's what with that one. You might have noticed lately we've been using 2 cameras. One was an iPhone 5, an old iPhone 5, and I can download that just with a USB plugged into it, straight into the computer, download a 30-minute video in about 20-30 seconds, something as quick as that. The i7, which is this one, you can't do that. I don't know for what reason, I don't know what's going on with it, but you can't download this to a computer. It has to be uploaded to the cloud and downloaded to the computer through the cloud. It takes forever to do that. But this camera will autofocus. As you walk closer to it, it'll reset itself, and so when I'm showing you parts and picking them up and putting them next to the camera, it'll refocus and job's a good one. For some reason the i5 keeps popping up the yellow square, which is the focus square. Anything in the square comes into focus, and yet it doesn't focus. I've noticed when I showed you the finger on the clutches, when I brought the finger up, when I was editing the video, you look at it and the finger doesn't come into focus. It's the background stays in focus. So we'll have to think carefully about how we're going to use that i5 in the future. It's no good doing videos out of focus, is it? You know what I mean? You kind of see what we're talking about if they're out of focus. Well, through the week we got our painting done. We've got up here, we've got diff lock pedals, diff lock actuators, brake shoes, and we need to get the linings put on the shoes. We've got little bits for the clutch up here. There's a spigot goes into here on the chassis where the big spring comes up from the clutch return. That's up there in primer. So this next week we are going to get some chocolate put on. The bits like that, like the external bits for the axle, the diff lock, the actuator for the diff lock, the pedal, they're going to get done, get painted chocolate this week, and other bits I might even paint that PTO. It just depends on how much space I've got and what I can physically get at the time. That's what clutch linkages to do, well, clutch brake stop linkages which come from here up into the pedal. This part of a clutch release is to be done. There's quite a bit of little bits and pieces that we'll crack on and get them done, get them caught up. Oh, that's what clutch pedal as well there, isn't it? I've just seen that. Clutch pedal to do as well. Tell you what, let's have that all up there. So we don't forget, because I know what will happen. It's happened before. You get a painting done, takes you 2 hours to set up, takes you half an hour to paint, takes you an hour and a half to take it all to bits. You take it all to bits, put it all away, you turn around twice, and the likes of that is still in the basket. And you keep thinking, that needs to be done the next time. So we've got this week, those discs off the clutch are going to get painted. These are going to get painted. And keep our fingers crossed that the injector tips might turn up. We'll get our injector set up and tested. We'll see, because we'll work on Tuesday anyway, aren't I? But we'll see. We'll see what we'll get done. And we'll have a look. Now, just had a question from Giorgio. Sorry Giorgio, that might be your name right. I maybe pronounced that wrong. It looks a Greek name. He's got 995 and he's asking, can he change the clutch discs without splitting the tractor? The easy answer is yes, you can. But, there's always a but. To be honest with you, I would say it's easier to split your tractor. You can see what I'm doing here with my clutch, but I don't have a gearbox in it. I don't have my input shafts, my clutch stop brakes, my support snout in it. So, for you to change your clutch plates without splitting the tractor, you've got to take your gearbox lid off anyway, which will probably mean taking your seat off. So gearbox lid's got to come off because you've got to disconnect your input shaft from your gearbox, your muff shaft. So you've got to pull the pin out of your muff shaft, you've got to collapse that up, you've got to take off the support snout, your stop brake, take that all out of the tractor so you can get at this. I suppose a lot of it depends on your personal circumstances. Have you got anything to support the tractor while you split it? If you have, I would suggest that's your easier route. If you haven't, then you're going to have to go down the route of taking the lid off, pulling all the shafts out to get into your clutch. Either way, it's got to be done, isn't it? If the clutch is gone, the clutch is gone. You can't fiddle it, you can't fix it the way it is. It's got to be replaced. So, good luck with that one. Let me know in the comments how you get on, or even do a little video, put a little video up of you changing your clutch plates. Let us see how you get on with it. Thanks for watching. Let's take you for a little walk and we'll have a look at what we're getting done this week. Quick walk around the painting jobs, quick walk around the injectors, and we'll see if we can put a couple of questions together for people who know a lot more than I do. Right, we said we were going to test this for oil pressure this week. It's later than I expected because the eyes for the cable didn't get delivered until this morning, which is Saturday. So I've soldered the cables up, got them in place. Give you a quick look at what we've been up to. So we've got our oil gauge in place, hooked up downstairs. We've got a nice big live cable down to there. Our earth cable's not so robust, but it'll do for this little test. Got the earth cable connected up with the jumper lead because it's just a fraction short. I had it left over from another job. The earth cable was 1 metre long. That's down to the battery. I've got this little black cable here as my solenoid control. So round this side, the oil pot there, I pulled the plug out for the oil gauge and I poured a jug of oil into that can so that we didn't have to keep turning and turning and turning to prime it in order to get the pressure up. As soon as the pump started pumping, it should just top that off nicely and then start and pressurise the system. Right, let's see if we can get set up somewhere where we can see the gauge and we can crank it over. Right, can we see the oil gauge there? I think we can, can't we? Right, let's give this a crank. Oh dear, right, already. Right, that got up about 4 bar, which is 55 psi. 50, aye, let's have a look, I got up about 55 psi there. I've got the top off here so I could see if any of the valves, because this has stood a long time, just wanted to make sure there's none of the valves were sticking. Right, we'll give it one more whiz. Can we? Trying to find a place. Where you can see the needle gunning. Right. Happy with that. Okay, let's just connect with earth. Oh, that's hot. Oh. Golly gosh, it's late on a Saturday night and it's warm, but I'm happy with that. 50 psi or just on turnover. Can you imagine what it's going to be like when it's firing? So happy with that. What we're going to do now, get everything tidied away, sort everything out, put the plugs back in the pipework to make sure now it gets inside the engine, put the rocker cover back on, and then we'll God, it's hot tonight, and then we will get ourselves organised. Happy chappy. That's the pedal for the diff lock, the brake actuators, brake shoes, we also got the seals knocked into the carriers today, 2 seals in each, greased the outsides, bumped them in, got them wrapped up, keep them clean. Right, so we've got all our injector bits here, all been bathed, cleaned. I got some pipe cleaners and went through the hose, wiped with pipe cleaners. I had some spray gun cleaning brushes that I went down through the holes in here with. Everything's had a brush out. Up in the top of there, I want to see, up in the, that's brilliant, isn't it? Right, up in the top of there is a hardened steel shim that stops the raw edge of the spring from cutting the top as you turn it. Now, I had seen in Lance's video that hardened steel shim. I was beginning to think mine didn't have them in, because even though I tapped them, turned them up, like tapped them on the bottom, nothing would come out. And it wasn't until I washed everything up in diesel in a little plastic tub, and then I went to drain the diesel off, and I'm always extremely careful when I'm draining the diesel off for little bits like that you haven't seen. And there was one of those hardened shims in the bottom of there had dislodged and come out and was lying in the bottom of the tub. So when you're doing that, if you get to this stage where you're cleaning your injectors, remember, up in here is a tiny little hardened steel shim there, and it's very thin. It's only maybe 3/4 thou thick. It's not very thick at all. The plunger this plunger comes down and sits on top of your tip as such in the injector. This is what transfers your spring pressure to your nozzle tip. I had one that was particularly minging, and it actually had rust on the bottom here. The spring, not this spring, the other springs, was about halfway up, was tainted with a rust colour on it. And I couldn't believe the amount of dirt that was inside these. Unbelievable. These I popped into my drill, and I just gently cleaned these off with Scotch-Brite, same with the tops. Just gently cleaned them all off with a little bit of Scotch-Brite. A question though I would like to ask: the lock nuts. Now, my lock nuts took an awful lot of getting off, and I did notice in the cleaning process, and we'll see if we can, let's see if we can get this. You see there, that bright patch there, there's one on that side and there's one on that side. And it looks as though, see it there? Just there. Now, does anybody know these lock nuts? Because you cannot thread this on by hand. It gets on and it stops, and that will be too tight. To get this off, I had to put it in a vise that just touched the sides in order to hold it, and you can see the amount of pressure that I've had to put on there to unscrew that. Now initially, the first one I thought was Loctite. Then when I got it off and cleaned it, and I saw this, right, anybody who's got a caravan is going to know what I'm talking about in the next couple of seconds. Are these single-use nuts the same as the nuts that's on the hubs on the caravans? And by single use, I mean what they do is they manufacture the nut, and then they very precisely squeeze it in a press to oval it, so that it when you put it on, it doesn't go on with Loctite. There's no locking tabs. Because it's an oval, as it goes on, it locks up solid. And when you take it off, you have to throw it away because it's then become more round and more looser. Mine, these haven't. But I'm just wondering, are these single-use nuts, or that little mark there? But it's on, that's on it, and it's the same. It's on the points there and there on all 4 nuts. Has anybody seen this before and know what it is? I initially thought these nuts were Loctited on, but they weren't. I've cleaned them, had a little wire brush in there with my Dremel, cleaning the threads out. I've even had that end of the scribe in there, scratching out just to see if there was any Loctite on there. But as I say, that shiny little pattern there says that those 2 areas have been rubbing fairly intensely on the screw, and yet the screw itself doesn't show any signs of polish or wearing from where they've been nipped in. So anybody out there got any ideas, let us know please. As I say, we're waiting for the new tips, still waiting for the new tips, but never mind, that's where Injectors. Quickly show you this. This is the clutch ring that came up on the replacement clutch. They don't feel, they actually feel as if they're still standing proud of that surface, whereas mine look incredibly worn. It's a thicker one anyway, isn't it? I think we might end up just having that one. The snout fits through there. I have checked that the snout fits through that one. But that's a better one, isn't it? Right, so we're back up at the farm this afternoon. Got my 2 final drives in the box here. We're going to get the final drives out. We're going to put them in the shed out the way for the winter. I had a look the other day and they're starting to suffer a little bit. So we'll get them out, we'll get them in there, and the next couple of days we'll come up with a lovely oily rag and we'll give the shafts a bit of a scrub and a wipe up with the oily rag. Right, let's get on with it. Right, that's them tucked away in here. As you can see, they're starting to suffer a bit. I've got a feeling I'll have to have a look at that, get that to polish up. Remember when we took the carriers out, the seal carriers, that was they were worn over, weren't they? We'll have to have a look. Maybe talk to Colin about a pair of shafts. Right, that's them tucked away inside for the winter, hopefully. Hopefully we'll get a chance to have a go at them before the winter. But we'll see, we'll see. Right, well thank you very much for visiting now. Hope you've enjoyed the video. Don't forget now, if you like my videos, please give us a thumbs up, like and subscribe, tell your mates. It's helping us out tremendously. We are very close to hitting the 400 subscribers this week. Hopefully we will. Be great if we do. So remember, don't overthink it. It's just nuts and bolts. See you in the next one. Take care now.